video we'll talk about the power law distribution. So whenever you see this kind of distribution means we are talking about the power law distributions. In the daily life we see this kind of curve. We see this kind of curve which is normally distributed, right? But there are some scenarios where we use these power law distributions. To understand this concept, the power law distribution, you need to know 80-20% rule, and which is a key to understand this concept, which is the power law distribution. Now what power law distribution says in terms of 80-20 rule. In a power law distribution, it is saying the 20% input is responsible for the 80% output, and remaining 80% input is responsible for the 20% output. Now where we can use this kind of power law distribution, for example, if we see this kind of examples: oil rich countries, earthquake, copies of books sold, right? Now if we take the first example, which is the oil rich countries, we can see that we can tell this that 20% in the world, there are 20% countries in the world which produce 80% oil. You can see the Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq, Iran. These are the countries that comes in a 20%, which producing 80% oil. And remaining 80% countries are producing only 20% oil. Right. So this kind of scenarios we can show this in this distribution. Another example, if we talk about which is an earthquake. Now you can see the example in the earthquake. Right here we can see the on x-axis there are the 24 hours in a day. We can say this: when earthquake occurred in a country, right, that in the first 20% of the day, 20% of the day means 4.8 hours. In a 4.8 hours, there were 80% death tolls and damages in all over the country, just in a 20% of the day, which is 4.8 hours. In a 4.8 hours, the death tolls was 80% and damages and the death toll was 80%. So this kind of dangerous situation we can also show this with this distribution. Another example is copies of books sold. We can see that in a market there are only 20% books which were sold. Copies were sold 80%, means 80% copies were sold of the 20% books in the market. We can also see the examples of the stock market movement. Another example I can give in a power law distribution is wealth distribution. In a wealth distribution, we can say the 80% wealth of the world, 80% wealth of the world is distributed in the 20% people of the population. And this is kind of an example that we can give in a power law distributions. And there are many examples that we can use distributions where we use the 80-20% rule, where the 20% rule is responsible for the 80% outcome, right? And another part of this distribution, we can say that in probability distribution, we normally see in this curve that the events which occur at the center has the highest probability at the center. Means in this distributions at the center, which comes at the center has the highest probability. We can see this. The curve is here peaked at the center, and in the normal distributions, the highest probability we can see at the center. But if we talk about the power law distribution, The power law distribution's highest probability you can see there at the minimum point. At the minimum point, there is highest probability. As the events increasing, as the event increasing, the probability is gradually decreasing. So that is the power law distribution where we use the 80-20% rule.